Guys, welcome to the Hawkszone Rundown. We are live, and joining us tonight, back on the show again, Mookie Alexander from the Field Gulls, and a new segment on the show. We're calling it the Pulse of the Hawks. So Mookie's going to be joining us every couple of weeks here, and just breaking down Hawks. What's been going on? Obviously, we're going to break down yesterday's game and what's up next for the Hawks. How we think this team is coming together, and where we think we can be here as far as first place in the NFC West. And we're going to get it all down after this.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
For this run. What a run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo Washington. The Seahawks are going to hold the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does.
Is it going to be another 9-8?
Who've got to finish something.
They have to fix the offense.
Part of his success and part of
ambition of being the LOB one again. That's trading DK Metcalf. Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawkszone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Mookie, what's going on, man? We appreciate you joining us. We're live here after a day after the Hawks put a beat down on the Falcons in their house. What's going on, man? Appreciate you joining us second time around here, man.
Yeah, it's great to be back and opening up this new segment we got going on this podcast. And it's great to be doing this off a win. It was a lot gloomier the last time I was on because the Giants game had just happened. And that is looking like, for now, the low point of the season, but things are on the up and up. Things can change so quickly. Lost the division lead last week, regained it this week. And now the team is starting to get a little bit healthier in areas where they can still be healthy. So positivity back on the menu, folks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The NFL really is a week-to-week league. Like, we had you on last time, and it was an awesome conversation, but yeah, a little doom and gloom. We're like, where are we as a team? What's our identity? And then just a lot of things came to light. I think like we were talking, a lot of people were talking just after that 3-game stretch was this team really needs just a reset. Like, get away from football for a couple of days, take a breath, and gives guys, especially young coaching staff like Mike McDonald and the rest of the guys, just time to breathe themselves, sit down, evaluate, where what they need to fix, and hopefully get this thing in the right direction. And then when Bryce and I were talking, it was like, okay, like you can't fix everything, but what can we do? Maybe the offense can get a little more creative. We saw Grubb try to balance it out against the Niners, and it was, balanced, but things couldn't be it could be more obvious. So then yesterday you saw Grubb. It was just more creative. It was an awesome mix of stuff. Even that fourth, the one that stuck out for me, that 4th down play, 4th and 1, when they had Ken and Charbonnet back there. And it was just a beautiful drawn up play. And that kind of stuff, you were just like, okay, and it was one of those games where just a complete football game, especially from the offense. I felt like it was Geno's best game. I mean, statistics aside, but no turnovers. And touch on this, Mookie. I mean, how did you like the aggressiveness going into that half there, when even the guys on the telecast were like, maybe get DK on a quick speed out so they can, get closer in the field goal. And then all of a sudden he just sits back and fires that post route to DK, and they just punch the Falcons in the gut going in the tunnel there.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how important that touchdown was, because after the previous offensive possession for Seattle, where Jackson Smith and Jigba throws that trick play pass to DK Metcalf, it looks like they're ready to score, and then sack, false start on Christian Haynes, the drive is dead, and then it goes back to Atlanta, and then you're fearing, all right, Atlanta's going to get a 2-minute drill, and they get the ball to start the second half. They could be trailing or tied at the half, and then they got to deal with Atlanta straight out of the locker room. And instead, the defense does its job by getting a stop, and Seattle has a timeout left, 2-minute drill. They run it real well up until the intentional grounding Geno took, and it was a bad outcome either way. It was either going to be grounding, run off, use your timeout, or he's going to get sacked, and you got to use your timeout anyway because it was a spot foul. So at that point, I thought, all right, maybe they're going to run a quick 5-yard play here, get a shorter field goal in for Jason Myers, and then you end up taking a 13-7 lead at the half if Myers does his job. But to take advantage of the Falcons defense that way with a beautiful throw, that's one of Geno's prettiest throws, and it's a great catch by Metcalf. He found the soft spot in that zone. The two safeties are back, and Mel Kiper, if you're listening, yes, you can create big plays with two safeties back. I'm complaining. The Seahawks made it happen. So that was I don't want to say momentum changer, but certainly a game changer to be by double digits and have to play with the lead for the entirety of the second half. So the aggressiveness was great. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the New Orleans Saints game 2 years ago, where they were on fringe field goal range, but Geno took a deep shot to Tyler Lockett, somehow just dropped that in there to the back of the end zone, and he caught it for a touchdown. Now, that game went differently, but still, the idea that they were able to take a shot in the end zone, not screw it up, I mean, that was just absolutely as well executed as you could possibly get. Pass protection held up. Geno was able to step into the pocket calmly and just fire a pill just to perfection. So you love to see that aggressiveness. Was it risky? Yes. Did it work out? Hell yeah, it did. And it was a big, big play in the game.
Yeah, no, honestly, Mookie, when I saw them in that situation I think it was just after Geno had taken that intentional grounding call, I was like, okay.
Bryce, we lose you there?
Bryce is frozen.
He's frozen. He'll come back, but I'll if he comes back, I'll let him finish what he's saying. But yeah, I agree. Bryce, you back? You back? Okay. Well, I just want to touch on this because I agree. It was a punch in the gut. It was definitely a momentum. I mean, because you're going to the half. I thought we needed points, especially after the intentional grounding. But so 3 points is great, but it was not just that you put up 7. It was just like you're going to the locker room as a Falcons, like, whoa. Not only did you give that up, now you're down. What was it, 10 points? And it just felt great. And the other thing that I loved about it really is that all the scrutiny that these two guys have been getting over the last few weeks, that's DK and Geno. Like obviously last game was highlighted with the headset and Geno smashing the iPad, 4 times there. And for me, like that kind of stuff, that doesn't bug me. I mean, I'm not saying the headset's a great look, but for me, I mean, it's the thing about it, it's frustration boiling over. These guys have played the Niners X amount of times. And I think, like a lot of people did, this was the time to get the Niners, like a reeling Niners team. And it was like, this is finally the time. Let's put it on them. And it wasn't happening. So, that stuff is under a microscope too much for me when they talk about DK Metcalf, because, we talked about it after yesterday. I said, I'm just tired of hearing the DK stuff. I mean, to me, this guy, sure, you can critique his game and the body catches sometimes, but to me, he's a true number one. I want to get your take on this because this is all you hear now is, every year it's a good class of receivers. It's easy to get a wide receiver nowadays. I don't think it is. I mean, to me, it's to get a true number one receiver isn't easy. And then, JSN's I like JSN, but he was a first round pick. And to me, he's not a number one guy. He's going to get involved in this offense. But to have a guy that's this physically gifted as DK Metcalf, I mean, I want to get your thoughts on it. I mean, this is a guy that you can't leave this building unless he wanted out.
Yeah, the last time I was on, we had discussed Metcalf after the fumble against the Giants. And yes, he still has issues with hands catches and some ball security problems. And he's still got some issues with contested catches. But at his best, you saw that high points of the JSN throw. I mean, that's a terrible decision. And it worked out very well because, one, the Falcons didn't even bother to track the ball. And 2, Metcalf made a great adjustment. He's able to catch it. The play that he got hurt on was a great catch as Jesse ran out of boundary, and Justin Tim was able to knock him out of bounds. So that's when Metcalf is at his best. And as far as the receiver talent in college, yes, it is phenomenal. There's going to be great receivers coming out of these schools pretty much every year. If you go to LSU, I mean, you're pretty much locked in to be a first-round pick. But within the context of the Seahawks, Metcalf is the only receiver on the team who can take the top off the defense.
Right.
And Lockett used to be that guy. He's kind of settled into possession receiver who may still get the occasional shot play, but you notice this year, other than like one throw against the 49ers, he is not gaining separation 30, 40 yards down the field like he did even 2 years ago.
Yeah, agreed.
Smith and Jigba, yes, I like him as well, and he can be like Mr. Third Down. But from what I've seen through a season and a half, and of course he can get better, he's still a very young player and a talented player. His lack of straight line speed, I think, is hurting his ability to be a deep threat down the field. Now, he's good with short passes and intermediate throws, but Metcalf is a threat at all three levels in ways that the other receivers on the team are not. So when you have that chemistry between him and Geno and previously him and Russell Wilson, that unlocks your passing offense significantly. So it's the fan base is kind of crazy because some weeks, and this even dates back to the Wilson years, some weeks it'd be going, such and such is not getting the ball, the coordinator isn't getting the ball to Metcalf. I mean, we need to get the ball to DK. And then other weeks it's like DK is getting the ball too much. Get it to Lockett.
I know.
We're in that oscillating mode. But if he's a number one receiver, I want him to get the ball. So I don't want to see him get 4 or 5 targets. And it is kind of a silly discussion because, for one, JSN leads the team in receptions, and 2, DK leads the team in targets. So you've kind of got a 1A, 1B potential going here. And with Metcalf, look at the receiving yards. He's second in the NFL receiving yards.
Exactly. Yeah.
And nobody else on the Seahawks, I believe, has more than 360 or 365. So, yes, his value to the team, as frustrating as he can be, if the Seahawks move on from Metcalf next season, of course, they're not going to trade him this season. They're not going to trade him at the deadline. That'd be stupid. But if they trade him next offseason or they don't give him a contract extension, they're going to have to really reassess the rest of the receiving core because, as I said last time, it's very possible Tyler Lockett's not a Seahawk in 2025. So if you move on from both, then it's Smith and Jigba and Jake Bobo, and then to be determined because everybody else is either on a 1-year deal or pretty much never gets any playing time. And I know more Bobo is a meme, and I love Jake Bobo as much as the next guy, but certain players are low volume target guys for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Jake Bobo has ever beaten a number one corner in any of his catches ever, whereas I have seen DK Metcalf beat some of the best corners in the game one-on-one. So Metcalf being that one-on-one option, being that speedster, that's what he provides to the Seahawks at his absolute best.
Yeah, no, sorry guys, I had that technical difficulty earlier, but
all good.
Yeah, no, with DK, and that's been my same kind of sentiment here as well, Mookie, is you can't move off DK because you don't the Tyler domino needs to fall first, I think, before you go and trade DK Metcalf. And like I don't think people have fully maybe dived into that contract situation with what they did with Tyler. Like there's no way they're going to pay Tyler what his contract is supposed to be next year for what he is now in the offense. He's just, yes, he has moments where he makes crucial catches, but Tyler Lockett is on this fringe of being a 3 and a 2 receiver rather than truly a 2 or a 1 receiver. The one thing that is bothering me about JSN, and I don't know, I think it might have to do with what you were mentioning about his straight line speed, but it's like we had that New England game where he got all those targets and that massive big game that we had, and we all kind of thought, okay, here comes JSN, here comes the usage that we all expected, and it's like disappeared. Like last game, I think he had his longest catch was 9 yards in the game. It was under 10 yards, and I'm like, we have to get this guy more down the field. And that's not, like you said, not vertical routes necessarily, but on some of these crossers, like he's catching screens again, like he did with Waldron. He's not going anywhere. Like I'm at this point now, and me and Ryan talked about it on our post-game show. I'm done with the screen game. We can't do it. We suck at doing the screen game. It's like a thing in Seattle. You go to Seattle and you can't run a screen apparently, but it's just frustrating that I look at the talent JSN does have, and it just seems like we're not using him correctly.
I think he can be used a little bit differently than they are using him. He is the screen option because he's the best yak option. The problem with Metcalf is he takes a little bit to get going from a standing position. And then with Lockett, we know he's not breaking tackles very consistently these days, and he is generally falling for self-preservation purposes. So JSN has that little smooth running ability. I think Grubb has figured something out with that little tunnel screen and also the middle screen, which he spammed like umpteen times against the 49ers. but normal screens to running backs and those little bubble screens, those plays aren't working. And it's two parts. One, the line is not blocking, and two, the receivers are not blocking well enough and the tight ends not blocking well enough for that to matter. So yeah, I'd like to see more play action crosses. Another way of putting this, some of the targets that Lockett's getting, I would like to see JSN get, because their skill sets can overlap with the routes that they've been running, whether it's those play action crosses that you mentioned, slant passes. We don't see enough slants on this team.
No.
Nobody on this team has got detrimentally bad hands. I know Metcalf may have some drops issues, but he is not. He's not a total like Nelson Aguilar type of drop liability. And then we know Lockett is as sure-handed as it can get. JSN had some issues with drops in his first season, but you have to keep in mind his wrist injury.
Right.
One bad drop. Well, sorry, two bad drops. One was in the Patriots game, another one in the Giants game. But I trust his hands to still be pretty solid. But ultimately, if the protection can hold up better, in other words, if it can look a little bit more like we saw in the Falcons game, and I'm not counting on that because we're not going to play too many teams with pass rushes as tepid as that one, that may open up some opportunities for JSN, because they did try a shot play, or a shot-ish play, I guess, to Smith and Jigba, and should have been pass interference. I mean, you have to try and catch it one-handed because he very obviously got his arm held. But again, it was a route with minimal separation, and that's what concerns me, is that the deeper down the field he goes, the less separation he seems to get when it's not a busted coverage. But with that said, you still would like to see Geno try and throw some contested balls to Smith and Jigba. Even if he's not open, let's see him win some 50-50s. I think he did it one time in the Baltimore game when that was a lost cause, but I think he also did in the Rams loss, the second one in Los Angeles, where he caught between two defenders. So I just look back at the Steelers-Jets game last night. Those Russell Wilson deep throws to George Pickens. Pickens is objectively not open on any of those.
Oh, my God, yeah.
But Pickens is a freak in nature, and he was able to do a helmet catch off of the Jets player on a ricochet. So we know that Metcalf's history with those types of contested catches not the greatest, but why not try that with Smith and Jigba? If that trust can be built, I mean, that would be critical to opening up another part of this offense.
Yeah, I think you just hit on the head right there with the trust. Like, I think right now, obviously, you mentioned chemistry with DK and Geno, and naturally that's, you're going to kind of give those 50-50 1v1s to your most comfortable guys. So you might be right. It might take some more time to build that trust and give him some of those shots. But yeah, I agree with you too. He's interesting because he seems not slow, but slower. Like I don't know what his 40 was, but he's not that. You're not drafting him because of his burning speed, right? He's such a clean route runner, and it might just be a case where Grubb's still trying to figure him out, right? I mean, it's taken time because he's trying to figure everybody out. It's first year for him too. So, but I like what I saw yesterday from Grubb. I just, man, when Ken Walker's going, and he had the flu, but he was going. This offense goes, and especially, I mean, to me, I think he's our most effective weapon. Just what he can do. He can catch. He had the catch of the day, right? He can just do everything. But talk about what else did you like overall from yesterday? Obviously the win, and we took care of business handily later on. I mean, my most impressive thing that I took away yesterday was taking away the football and really kind of getting that monkey off our back. When the defense was like, they knew that it's been almost all year where they're just not taking the ball away. And then you have the beautiful strip sack by Mafe, and then Derek Hall scoop and score. I mean, just textbook beautiful, right? And then they pile on with the picks. I was just impressed, especially when you have three guys out, Kobe playing safety, looking good. What impressed you the most overall yesterday, besides the win, that you really liked and took away from yesterday's game?
I liked how generally clean the Seahawks played. Only 5 accepted penalties, so that's always a plus. And one was a false start on Jarrell. Another one was, I think, a false start on Haynes. So that's 2. So you got 2 pre-snap penalties on your rookies.
No.
And I think there was a very questionable pass interference on Josh Jobe. And then I forgot the other 2 penalties. Well, grounding was the fourth, and I don't remember the fifth. But whatever the case, we've seen the Seahawks get penalized way too much and for very sloppy reasons and undisciplined reasons, frankly. But that was already promising that they cut the penalties down. The other bit, no turnovers. You had one close-ish turnover when Gino dropped the snap, and that was in part because at the timing of the snap, we're pretty lucky that Noah Fant didn't go directly in front of Connor Williams, because that's what I was afraid of when he motioned across. And then it almost happened again with Barner, but Atlanta ended up jumping offside. But still, Gino fell on it. Just eat the play, go and punt. So no turnovers for the first time since week 2 against the Patriots. Only 5 accepted penalties. And then even on special teams, I said it on the Field Gulls account, the special teams has been mostly a net negative this season. The Patriots game was the only other time they actually looked good. But in this one, Jason Myers hitting a 59-yard field goal. I mean, that's really encouraging, because he tried one from 61-ish or a couple of weeks ago against Detroit, and it wasn't even close. That one, plenty of distance, and he went right down the middle. It's a stadium record, apparently. So kicking game was on point. Michael Dixon's punts were getting down inside the 20. Kick coverage was good. And D. Williams, not a liability, no fumbled punts, no fumble kick. He had no bad fair catch decisions or non-fair catch decisions. So they didn't do things to beat themselves, certainly not relative to what Atlanta did. Atlanta absolutely had a role in their own demise with like 3 false start penalties on one drive. Some of their own inaccuracies went from Kirk Cousins, but still, the Seahawks also forced Cousins into some of his worst plays. And yes, the takeaway differential, that was such a delight to see, because it's uncharacteristic of a Seahawks team to be this bad in turnover differential. And it's one thing when you're giving the ball away. It's another thing when you're not getting close to getting turnovers. And playing with the lead meant that Cousins had to be in obvious passing situations. Pass rushers can pin their ears back. And one thing I noted in my prediction, of course, I picked Atlanta to win the game. I thought it would be a shootout. Well, I was half right. Seattle did their part. They scored a lot of points. Atlanta didn't. But Cousins not being a mobile quarterback, I think gave Seattle's pass rushers a significant edge. Because one, the interior pass rush, if they could get there, Cousins isn't going to be able to just sidestep or anything like that. And we saw him get sacked by Williams, sacked by Draymond trying to escape the pocket. And it was an inside rush, I think, from Derek Hall that caused that. But the other bits is, even if it's pressure and Cousins is trying to scramble, pre-Achilles, Cousins was not the most adept scrambler. But post-Achilles injury, he is moving in quicksand. And Boye Mafe was closing like a freight train. So that was fantastic to see the Seahawks defense playing with the lead in the fourth quarter and having those opportunities to get after Cousins, be a little more aggressive, and take advantage of errant throws. Like it felt like we haven't seen too many errant throws from at least the good quarterbacks against the Seahawks, and they put themselves in position to take the ball away. So turnovers can be a funky stat. They can be quite volatile, but the fact that the Falcons still had a slim chance to pull off a miracle comeback, knowing some of their improbable wins this year, and Seattle slammed the door shut on 3 straight possessions, absolute thing of beauty. To me, it was the most complete performance of the Mike Macdonald era. And when you consider how many people they had out, as you mentioned, on the defensive side of the ball, and you're starting Michael Jarrell at right tackle, that's I would go as far as to say it's a season-saving win. Because if you drop a 4th in a row, you put that lead at 3-4, and you're a definite underdog against Buffalo, things are looking bleak, because the NFC is evidently quite tougher than we thought. All the hype was about the AFC and how many teams are potentially going to be above 500. I think we could see 2 above 500 teams missing the playoffs this year. So for Seattle to get that win was so important, not just to stop the streak, but to also get a tiebreaker. Like starting 0-3 against the NFC already puts you behind the 8 ball, but you beat Atlanta, and you've got a head-to-head on them for the rest of the year. They can't reverse that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know for sure, Mookie. And that was one thing me and Ryan talked about, was like, you can't go 0-4. Like, that tiebreaker is huge going forward, because this is a team that could potentially be a team that's a wild card, maybe, depending on how the Bucks keep playing down there, and you know, if they're going to actually be the division winner. So it was definitely a card to have in your pocket going forward. But the thing for me, I think two guys on the defensive line really stood out. I thought Byron Murphy, obviously being back, was huge on that interior. You can see the force he's slowly starting to become. Like a couple of his run stuffs there were massive on Robinson. But Robertson Harris surprised me, considering just coming from Jacksonville. You'd kind of heard, okay, maybe he's not the greatest run defender. He can pass rush inside. He looked really good to me as like a rotational piece in there that could potentially even be a starter and spell a Jaron Reed a little bit more when you get him and say like Byron and Leonard Williams all on the field together at the same time. The one thing that did scare me though on our defense, and it's something I wanted to get your opinion on, was what did you think of our ability to fill the cutback lanes in the running game? Because for whatever reason, that is killing us on this team, is we will get initial penetration and we can't seem to stop and fill anything coming backside.
Yeah, Robertson Harris really impressed. And you're talking about coming from Jacksonville. He's coming from the Jacksonville team, but quite literally, he was coming from London to fly out to Renton, or fly out to Seattle, and then go to VMAC in Renton, and then fly to Atlanta to play however many snaps it was in his Seahawks debut. Had a couple of good run stops. I think the Murphy tackle for loss you're referencing, Robertson Harris was also there on pursuit. So yes, Tyler Olson, one of our staff writers at Field Gulls, he noted that the Seahawks are undefeated when Byron Murphy plays, even with the Dolphins game where he left early, and they haven't won a game when he's out. And I think the depth of the interior defensive line, it's abundantly clear that it needed shoring up, which is why they traded for Robertson Harris, even though it looked like a surprising trade on the surface. Miles Adams was getting healthy scratches anyway, and they gave Cam Young a shot, but Cameron Young has shown close to nothing, even when he has played dating back to his rookie season. I think this hopefully also means fewer snaps for Jonathan Hankins, because he was brought over to be a run stuffer, but he might have seen his better days. Like, he had a good game against Miami, but he's just been generally unremarkable since then, and he's not giving you pass rush either. So yeah, Murphy was really good, and that interception by Julian Love, he's coming around, and I think Cousins panicked and forced that slight overthrow. Maybe Drake London could have caught it, but nevertheless, higher than he probably would have wanted it to be, and that's Murphy on the scene. So yes, I'm hyped that Byron Murphy is back and healthy, and he can change the fortunes of the Seahawks defensive line. As far as the run defense, the linebackers are a problem, and Baker especially. Baker's run fits are messy. Dotson can be better. And you know what? Dotson's actually pretty good in short yardage running situations, but pretty much anything else, I think it's a second level problem, a lot more than the defensive line. And it wasn't like we weren't warned that with 1 year prove it deals for these linebackers, we could have some issues. And I know that Tyrus Knight, that there are calls to play him, and I think he should get some playing time, but there's a good chance that he's not going to be a substantial improvement either. This is kind of just the situation we're in with the Seahawks. Now, the Ravens' run defense under Mike Macdonald, you think about it, it had its struggles. But yeah, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen at linebacker, a little bit better than Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dotson. Dotson only became a 3-down linebacker full-time this season. I mean, he wasn't a starter last year until a bunch of other linebackers got hurt, including Matt Milano. So yes, I'm worried about the cutback lanes. I don't think the run defense is fixed. Even with that improved second half performance, I think the game state helped them tremendously as far as stopping the run. But yes, the run defense has to improve, because they're not going to have a let up either. You got to deal with Buffalo's offensive line is a great offensive line, and they can get push, and they can create holes for James Cook and Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. You got the Rams after that. The Rams are down to bare bones of the offensive line. They got some guys back. I think Havenstein's back and all that, but Kyron Williams is another running back you got to deal with. And then out of the bye week, I know San Francisco is kind of teetering here, but we know what San Francisco has done to Seattle for 3 seasons running, as far, pun intended, against that defense. So yes, some more things have to get cleaned up, especially with the backside cutting lanes, because Bijan Robinson was just a force, and so was Tyler Algier. And then you're getting too many guys also just missing tackles in open space in those fits. So when that happens, you're in big trouble. So yeah, that's the one negative that I can think of from that game. But all in all, when that's the only downside and a 20-point win,
Yeah.
against it hadn't been down by 2 possessions all season, then you're living pretty comfortably.
Yeah, and like you said, like when you look at that and you had the turnovers there, that you slowly start building confidence, especially guys that are coming off the bench and contributing big time too, right? Like we mentioned Kobe Bryant and Pritchett, having a start out on the corner, and so I just think collectively, like you mentioned, how this could have been. I mean, we talked about this was a must win, like a must win, just for a couple of reasons. One, for the season, like if you have any aspirations of being a playoff team, well, this is a must win. But two, just getting back on that plane right after you've lost 3 in a row in that stretch, and then if you come back after a mini bye and just sort of show the same thing, like we thought. Now you'd probably maybe expect this to be a trend for the season, but they didn't do that. They came out and they looked a lot better. They looked like that 10-day off stretch really helped them out a lot for a few reasons. And because and then the other thing, if you 3-4 coming home to a Bills team, then you really then it's Mike McDonald really has a test with that locker room early on and saying, okay, how can I still keep these guys up? Like that would be a challenge in itself as for a young head coach. So the way it is now you're 4-3 coming home, and now that stadium's going to be loud. The fans we're back again. Like, hey, and let's not forget, we're first in the division. Like, if with all these issues we have, I mean, when it comes down to it, we're playing in a bad division and we're in first. I mean, the year we went, what was the year Beastquake? They were 7-9.
Yeah, 2010.
I mean, they got a home playoff game, so it just works like that. Sometimes you're in a bad division, and then sometimes your division's really good. Right now, the division's not good. Maybe we can take advantage of it. We're in first in the division. So looking ahead of this team, the next 2 games that we have here, going into the bye, like we could really be in a good spot, and we could easily be 4-5 as well. Like the Rams, you got to stress to people that it's a divisional game, and I don't care how bad they might be looking or whatever. Last year, before the season started, you looked at that schedule, you thought it could have been 2 wins, right? And it was the opposite. So, what's your outlook right now for the squad, man? Like if we were looking ahead and say, because before the season, there was people that are like double-digit win team, right? And then after this 3-game losing streak, there's a lot of people that came back and said, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is an 8-win team. Now they're 4-3. They look good. We mentioned some issues that they had. Where do you see this team now? It's such a week-to-week league, but I mean, do you see this team kind of looking at the schedule? Do you see them kind of building that confidence and being competitive and pulling off some of these wins, or are you still kind of, this could be an 8 or 9 win team? Or what do you think? And if we win 9 and win the division, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's a confidence builder for Mike and the guys too, right? So,
yeah, you think about these next 2 weeks, Buffalo. It would be an incredible result if they can stop this Buffalo team, because the Bills probably have already won the AFC. I mean, who's going to challenge them? Miami's going to get Tua back. I don't think that's a good team anyway. And we know the Jets are a clown show. Patriots are playing for next year. So they're more focused on, can we get the number 1 seed? Can we get home field advantage throughout the playoffs? They're 2 back at Kansas City. They're going to play Kansas City eventually. So that's going to be a hard game because of the Bills offense. Josh Allen's playing at an MVP contender level, hasn't thrown an interception yet. The Bills defense, they're well coached given how many people they're missing. And of course, they're not going to have Von Miller because he's finishing up his suspension. Mm-hmm. So it's not the best pass rush you'll see. Epinesa is good. Ed Oliver's good. I'm more worried about their interior pass rush, but they've got some issues as far as their linebackers, and the safety play can be up and down with Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin. So there is a shot that Seattle can upset Buffalo. I'm sure it's going to be an amped up atmosphere compared to the kind of dreaded feel if they were on a 4-game losing streak. But if you told me they would split these next 2 weeks, which I think is what's going to happen, I would rather they drop the Buffalo game, doesn't impact their tiebreaker situation, and win the Rams game doubly impact your tiebreaker because you got the division and you've got the conference. And that Rams team struggled like hell against the Raiders, and the Raiders look like a bottom 5 team, and they are a bottom 5 team. Kind of sloppy in terms of their performance. They should have blown them out, and they didn't. But still, we've been here before with Sean McVay and the Rams. Even the worst Rams team from 2 years ago took Seattle to overtime with the season on the line, and Geno needed a last-second comeback in the other game when they were down to their backup quarterback, backup running back, backup everything. No Aaron Donald, et cetera, et cetera. And the Rams are getting healthier. They're going to have Cooper Kupp back for their Thursday game against the Vikings. I think they're going to get Nakua back maybe before the Seattle game. If they don't, then still you have Kupp. And they're getting some key players returning in some important positions. But on the other side, you could say the same for Seattle. I mean, George Fant could come back this week. Don't think we're going to see Abe Lucas. Mike McDonald indicated that if Lucas returns to practice this week, he's going to have to ramp up. So he's probably back after the bye if that's the case. Could see Reek Woolen back this week. Probably going to get Trey Brown back within a week or after the bye. So Seattle is also getting healthy too. And we haven't seen them quite play their best football. I think they'll split. And if they split 5-4 into the bye, not the worst thing in the world, there's a decent chance that they'll come out of the bye week still in first place. If Dallas can do Seattle solid and beat San Francisco, then things really get fascinating, because after the bye week, the San Francisco game is obviously going to be important, the rematch. Maybe they have McCaffrey back. Maybe they don't. Either way, we know Ayuk is not coming back.
Yeah.
So that's still going to hurt their offense. But there's a 3-game stretch there. Arizona twice. And as I speak, Arizona is beating the Chargers. But Arizona twice and the Jets in the middle of that 3-game stretch. That is, to me, the big crunch, the big point of the season. The Jets don't look like a good team, and I don't think that they're going to magically correct themselves into being a playoff contender. Arizona is a tricky team, as we know all too well, but Seattle has beaten Arizona plenty of times over the last few years. If you can stack wins and then you have your easy part of the schedule, easy in quotes, then we can start thinking, yeah, they can make the playoffs. To me, for the Seahawks, with the state of the NFC West, I feel like they have to win the division to get into the postseason.
Yeah.
Because there are just too many teams in the NFC North that are going to occupy wildcard spots. So, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about Seattle. The only bad outcome, of course, is if they lose both. You lose both, you drop 4 home games already. And then the rest of your season's is majority on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So if they win both, if they go into the bye at 6-3, then start your engines, ladies and gentlemen, because we're talking about Seattle as potentially pushing for a division and a relatively high seed. So we'll see what happens, but that win was so needed just for our psyche too. Was the team that was going to lose 3 times in 11 days the team we're generally going to get for the rest of the season? Or, as pointed out in the comments, was 3 games in 11 days, no padded practices, was that a bit of a hindrance for a young team, young coaching, inexperienced coaching staff? Did that hurt them a lot more than we thought? And I think there is something to that. And let's not forget, Seattle's got to do that again at the end of the season, because they're going to have, annoyingly, they're going to have, I think, Green Bay and then Minnesota
and Chicago.
So they're going to have the NFC North gauntlet, 2 at home and then at Chicago day after Christmas on a Thursday night. So having to do that again really sucks, which is why they really got to stack the wins while they can before they reach that pivotal point mid-December.
Yeah, I know that gauntlet with the NFC North there is going to be definitely something that's going to be, I think, more of a challenge than maybe at the beginning of the year when we all looked at it. We all probably went, oh, yeah, Green Bay is going to be that challenge. The Bears, they're going to be so-so. And who knew what the Vikings were going to kind of be, because we didn't know what their quarterback situation was. And all of a sudden, the Sam Darnold's figured out how to play quarterback in the NFL at a relatively high level. So, I think they split, Mookie. I'm more in favor of what you're saying. Like, if you're going to split, win the Rams game. Like, don't lose that game, because that just hurts you and basically kind of nullifies your win versus the Bills anyways. But let's get into some of these questions here, because we've got a whole bunch of them kind of stacked up here. So I'll put this one up first. Hawk fan Mattman says, were you encouraged by the improvement in the rush defense in the second half, or was that more of a result of Atlanta going pass heavy in catch-up mode?
Well, they were statistically better. I'm not going to count the last drive when Penix was just handing the ball off and the backups were in. So I'm going to disregard that. But Algier and Bijan Robinson only had 22 yards for 11 carries in the second half. So that was significant improvement. I remember the Murphy tackle for loss happened there. And so was the Draymond Jones tackle for loss on, I think it was Algier. And Draymond was another big surprise. That was his best game as a Seahawk by far. But I do feel like playing with the lead helped hide the run defense, so to speak. So if I pull up the play-by-play data, after the Falcons cut it to 17-14, Seahawks go up by 10, their next sequence, pass, sack, pass that's way short of the sticks. And then the next time Atlanta gets the ball back, Bijan gets 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard. So there is improvement there. But then Cousins gets strip sacked, touchdown. So at 31-14, they don't call another run play while Cousins is in the game. So that it might be a bit of both. One, there were some adjustments made to tighten up the run defense just a bit, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Seattle was in front and Atlanta had to pass. And also, the Falcons lost 2 offensive linemen in this game. They're already down at backup center, and he got hurt. So with that offensive line banged up, and they're having to throw, it kind of produced an artificial suppression of their run stats, because certainly in the first half it looked like a non-contest. It was looking like Bijan was going to have 200, but in the second half things changed. Some of the run fits were a little bit better. The defensive line were also winning off the snap quickly, like Murphy and Robertson Harris, but game states meant everything. And to me, this is where the offense can help the defense. Of course, the defense helped the offense by getting a touchdown themselves, but the offense can help the defense by scoring a lot more and getting healthy enough leads that teams are going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to become one-dimensional. That's what happened with the Ravens last year. Part of the reason why their defense was so good everywhere, their offense was also elite. They could build these big leads, so you're forced into being one-dimensional. And I think it's pretty clear at this point that Seattle's pass defense is better than its run defense.
Yeah, no, totally agree. All right, so we've got another one in here, another comment, and I'll show this one up. So this is True Drew Sports. Can we get JSN more than 9 yards in a game?
Yeah, I hope so, because I'm going to have to drop him from fantasy at this point.
Yeah, right? No kidding. Yeah. I've got him in mind too. Like I've started him too, because I figured, okay, against Atlanta, they might not have a strong enough nickel to play against them. Yeah, it's not like I don't know what's
DK's status for Sunday? Is it do we know yet? They say he's week to week, but
yeah, aren't we all? But
yeah,
week to week, but
that's sort of.
We're gonna have to find out. Forget Wednesday, because Wednesday is when they release the report and like 60 Seahawks.
Yeah,
more than people on the active roster. They're gonna name the team janitor and everybody else is on the injury report.
Yeah, it's early.
We're gonna have to figure it out on Thursday. But he could miss this game. But I just remember that he had something similar in 2022.
Oh, the patella tendon, that's right. Yeah,
and then he ended up
missed a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, what we could see is, if he does play, it'd kind of be like snap count restriction. So minutes restriction, basketball, pitch count for pitchers, that sort of thing, where he's going to have a reduced workload. But you look at Smith and Jigba's numbers, he's got 100 catches to his name now through a season and just about a season and a half. He hasn't hit 1,000 yards yet. And that's kind of Jarvis Landry territory. And if you remember Jarvis Landry, he's a dude who had a lot of receptions, 713 over 9 seasons. And his yards per reception was 11. And that's kind of the trajectory I feel that JSN is going at the moment. And while that still produces a pretty good receiver, not sure that would be like a number 20 overall pick sort of productivity you would hope for. But yeah, with Smith and Jigba, I'm sure that they can find other ways to scheme him than just those annoying screens. But if Grubb can scheme up Yak better than screens, like those slant plays that I just mentioned earlier, if you get the right matchup, slant, middle of the field, you got open space, Smith and Jigba can take off, and that's how you can get him open. We'll see more of the play action game, I think, to give Smith and Jigba some shots. So far, we've seen it to Metcalf and Lockett for the most part. You even seen one to Noah Fant. But if we can get Smith and Jigba involved in the play action game, I think that would be huge as far as having another target there. So we're seeing one too many of these games from JSN where he's getting a few targets and they're minimal depth of target, minimal depth of catch. But I just look at the Lions game, I look at the Patriots game and go, there's that potential for him to just break out. So he's still played, 20 some odd games. So your career isn't totally decided yet in that many games. He's just not as productive as we want him to be. And he's still in an environment where there are two other established star receivers on the team.
Well, that's what I was going to say too. You think it's probably also a case where, first of all, Grubb's trying to figure it all out. Like, you even talk about a guy like Noah Fant. They paid him a bunch of money. He's a natural, receiving tight end, right? So there's really another receiver in the mix. Ken Walker plays in the passing game too. So to me, like you look at the San Francisco game, it's like Grubb's still trying to figure it out, right? The week before it was like pass. Ken had like 30 yards. And Mike McDonald obviously brought him in his offense and said, you have to run the ball. Like, this is insane. And he went the opposite direction and just run, pass, run. Like, so it's, to me, I also still want to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say, hey, Grubb's still trying to figure this out. And like you mentioned, it's two established guys in DK and Tyler. They're force feeding DK early, and now there's a bit of balance there, but there's only one football too, right? So that's the thing. It's nice to have spread it out everywhere, but it's maybe we will get to the point. Like I wasn't a Shane Waldron fan, but say last season, the first half of the season, you didn't even know JSN existed. Then he started coming on. Like Waldron tried to figure it out. We have a new OC, so even if you like Grubb more, we're starting from zero. And he's trying to figure out how to utilize everybody. So, to your point, yeah, it might be in the second half of the year where you start, coming off the bye or something, where you sort of see JSN, picking up more yards, more involved. And who knows, maybe start emerging past Tyler. Like you said, it was just 2 years ago where he was catching those dimes deep down the field in New Orleans there. Like, I remember exactly what you're talking about. It was beautiful. And Tyler just doesn't have that anymore. He really doesn't. It's almost like it has to be perfect for him. So then you might sort of see Grubb, changing up some of those play calls. Like you said, now those are going to JSN and maybe not as many to Tyler. So could see that sort of passing to the guard kind of thing, right?
Here you go. So this is actually from Hawks fan Matt again. I love DK's talent, but it does feel like Grubb is force feeding him a bit too much right now. I'd prefer the running offense through K9 and use the receivers as complementary pieces. That is what I kind of noticed in this game more than any of the others, was the balance. They took their shots to DK, but it wasn't as obvious as it had been in, say, the 49ers game or even the New England game at points. Like, the establishment of the K9 running game allowed for one thing that I've been craving and dying for them to do, which is under center, deep drop play action for Geno to get him away from the pressure and let some things. I think that's where he hit Fant on a crosser, and some of the deeper stuff that they did run. I think that's a huge part of this offense that needs to keep growing, is not bailing on the run game. And you could see different things. I will say, I think Mike Jarrell helped that run game more than we potentially realized, with his ability to actually leverage the ends. Like, he went up against Matthew Judon, who's no slouch of a rush end in the NFL. He held up well. And, I think one thing I noticed in this game more was the pocket didn't collapse on Geno. It leaked, and there were leakages throughout. What a good quarterback like Geno can move, manipulate that, and still create throwing space for himself. The prior weeks, it had fully just collapsed on him, and there was nowhere to go.
Yeah. They gave up, 13 pressures in this game, which on 28 dropbacks is still pretty high. Now, not all pressures are created equally. Not all pressures are defined the same by depending on which outlet you use. Yeah. NFL Next Gen Stats is different from Pro Football Focus. The definition of pressure can change, but the types of complete play destroying pressures, those felt like they were being kept to a minimum. Now we got to adjust for opponent and know that the Falcons pass rush is just, it stinks. It's bad. And there's no way around that for them. And they traded for Judon in hopes that they could improve their pass rush. And he's not providing a whole lot either. But still, it was encouraging to see Jarrell play the way he did. Of course, he had his rookie moments. And I think that if Jarrell played a more fierce pass rush, then they would have either given him more help or he would have had his struggles. But still, that touchdown for Walker, the first one that is, you have Christian Haynes and Michael Jarrell having that express lane into the end zone for Walker. You love to see it from your two rookies, one of whom wasn't even the backup to the backup on the depth chart.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic. The way they use Walker, we have to acknowledge, of course, and we already did, that it was his flu game, the K9 flu game.
Yeah.
So he might not have been able to carry that same workload that he would have if he was not sick, because we saw Charbonnet, other than the fourth down conversion, wasn't particularly effective. But with Walker, you could tell he maneuvers tight spaces so well. And then when he gets into the open field, his acceleration is just first class. So
Yeah.
Walker is involved and he's effective. So not the 49ers nonsense where they just went full 2018 Schottenheimer and just jammed themselves into a brick wall over and over again, hoping it would work. This was much smarter. And the running game wasn't great. I mean, their EPA per play was in the negatives. Their success rate, I think they only got a first down at 20% of their running plays, but it didn't feel like it was completely ineffective. And they were getting some explosives. And Walker even had a touchdown call back because of an AJ Barner holding penalty. But Walker in the receiving game as a non-check down intrigues me. I mean, that wheel route, that was really good. Just zip behind the linebacker, and he's showcasing the hands. So that's how I want the running backs involved in the passing game. When I see Walker and Charbonnet have loads of targets, but they're checkdowns, I don't really want to see that. I want to see Walker in particular being able to run those sorts of routes that we see the other top receiving running backs in the league perform. So, yeah, get Walker more involved. I think he is probably the least frustrating offensive player on the team right now. And we got on Walker for the first couple of years for his tendency to improvise and bounce when he shouldn't bounce. I think he's been better with that this year. And also, you've seen some of the run blocking this year. Mm-hmm. You can totally understand why he's having to freestyle and totally improvise there. So you give him running lanes, he's going to find a way. So, yeah, the way that they sequence the Metcalf targets could be done a little bit differently. Like, I don't want to waste second and goal at the 17 on a one-on-one play with a tight corner, with AJ Terrell at his hip. But I still think that's, all things considered, you look at the target situation for the Seahawks. Metcalf's got 61 targets. Smith and Jigba's got 55. Lockett's got 46. I think that's appropriate balance.
Mm-hmm.
You could give Smith and Jigba more targets in different areas of the field, but it's not like Metcalf is just getting the ball at a disproportionate rate. You got three talented receivers, and as Ryan said, there's only one ball. You're going to have to figure out a way to spread the ball around as effectively as you can, maximize that efficiency. Now, Metcalf is having I think a below average success rates in terms of first downs and all that, but some of that is also game state that he can't control. Like that played in the end zone the first quarter after the touchdown, it's second and long. So you put yourself in a bad situation. You can't necessarily put it on the receiver when it's second and long and you're trying to make a deep shot pass and it doesn't go. It's a low percentage throw. So again, still a lot of season left, and we are seeing adjustments. Look at Noah Fant being a pretty effective guy. I mean, he's on a streak of like 26 straight targets without an incompletion. So I'm looking at 4, 10, 13, 15, 21. So 21 straight targets without an incomplete pass. He's slowly but surely getting to that potential why the Seahawks traded for him. And then AJ Barner, every target his way has been a catch. So we're tight ends get involved. So in due time, I think we'll see JSN get more effectively involved. And if Metcalf doesn't play this weekend, then maybe we'll see another wrinkle for Grubb. Like, what happens when we take away Metcalf and now suddenly your deep shot option is probably gone? How can you scheme around that?
Yeah, I know that'll be an interesting thing, because if Metcalf doesn't play, I wonder if that means potentially we see more Derek Young into the offense, because he's really your only true big, deep threat kind of guy that they may still add a sprinkling. But I think you're right, Mookie. They may change how they attack teams. This was a comment that came in. I'm going to throw this up from Jason. Mookie is low-key, dry, funny. He should be on the overload with Matt and Griff as well. Would be a great combo.
Yeah, Matty and Griff are the absolute best. I've learned a lot just from those two. And listen, Matty is the ultimate ambassador for American football in the United Kingdom. I have heard he's English, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Mookie, what's your thoughts on Zach? I mean, he's second round pick. He's still 7 games in, played last year. So he's kind of in the same boat with a few of the guys. But yeah, what are your overall thoughts? I mean, we're talking about JSN. He's a second year guy too. Zach picked a round later. Are you happy overall with his game, or we talk about this bruiser guy, but he's, I know the O line's been an issue for the run game, but overall, what are your thoughts on Zach? Because the guy I want to see a little more in the mix eventually this season. I know they're different runners. I want to see Kenny out there running a little bit. I know he got a touch yesterday, but yeah, overall with Zach and. I mean, do you want to see McIntosh a little bit? I just feel like he could be somewhat dynamic in somehow, whether it's offense or special teams or something. But I just like to see a little bit more of him. But yeah, what's your overall take with Zach so far?
With Charbonnet, I really don't think they should have used a second round pick on Charbonnet. No, I like him, but within the context of this offensive line, and also while watching the Seahawks get gashed against the run over and over again by fifth-round rookies and undrafted free agents, it shows you that little balance between running back value and offensive line value, and the value of how effectively your offensive line can block. But when the line blocks well, I think Charbonnet is a good player. Yeah. In terms of his rushing ability, he can be physical, fight through contact. He doesn't have that same speed that Walker does, so that change of direction, his ability to make those quick cuts. But I think his value is in pass pro. Because you might have, if you go back and whether the live broadcast or the All-22, because it's kind of the same from that angle, Charbonnet's blitz protection is really fantastic. I go back to the New England Patriots game, that big play to JSN over the middle is 3rd and long, and he's able to pick up the blitz so perfectly, and Gino was able to just sidestep, get that clean throwing lane, and fire it to Smith and Jigba over the middle. That's where Charbonnet I think really shines, and it's, to me, part of why we see so much of him is because he's a better pass protector than Kenneth Walker. And with McIntosh, I'm wondering if he's also like somebody who's not great in pass pro, and they're still working on that. But
yeah,
you have to see McIntosh get slightly more involved. We saw that angry run he had in the preseason finale that made Michael Bennett say he gave him the stiffy, which I didn't know you could do that on television.
Right.
At least I thought you'd have to visit a different site for that. But with his receiving skills are also good. Like with Charbonnet, you look at us, has 20 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. He's somebody else I could see on wheel routes, but certainly as a screen pass option. Any running back can be behind there. They're not going to get a successful screen away. I think we're resigned to that fact. But Charbonnet, I think, is not remarkable as an overall as a pure running back, but he does like little things well enough where his inclusion in the lineup is justified. He's like a super Travis Homer. I think Griff might have said that, but I think I'm going to go with that, where he is a better running back than Travis Homer, but he also provides the same pass pro value. He just doesn't do special teams, but there should be a clear hierarchy where when Walker is not sick, he should be getting the majority of the carries. And then Charbonnet is that change of pace, third down back. And then we get to McIntosh. But yeah, I do want to see McIntosh a little bit more. And I also want to see him signal the first down marker after he's actually gotten the first down, not 2 yards short of the first down. That was funny as hell, wasn't it?
That was
I missed that, man.
Oh, he got a handoff. He comes around and I'm like, oh, like he actually might turn this into a first down. He gets stopped like 2 yards short and rolls over the guy and then gets up and acts like he got the first down. He does the first down signal, everything. I'm like, is there a different marker that I'm not seeing on this telecast that you got the first down, Kenny? And
I mean, he's just really excited to get. He just probably couldn't believe he was on the field. Like, oh,
yeah, that's
finally seen some playing time.
I got a question for you though, Mookie, about Charbonnet and Walker, because Ken's theoretically in year 4 next year of his contract, which we don't have the 5th year option for him, so you're gonna have to deal with that. And then the following year, you've got Charbonnet's year 4. How do you keep this tandem together, or is it a situation of one of them's going to be gone and you're gonna have to figure out which one that is.
Oh, one of them's gone.
Yeah.
I would rather than not tie up too much at the running back position. I am not firmly anti-pay running backs. I do want to see them get paid. I do want to see them acknowledged as human beings. But
yeah.
I think that you can keep Walker, but running backs are there's such a surplus of talent at running back, whether it's Ashton Genty in the first round or some random dude in the 7th round. That backup running back isn't so important that you got to sign your backup to a multi-year deal. So, and also, McIntosh is also in the same class, right? So you're looking at both of them, being a year, a year advance in their deals. But I would be compelled to sign Walker. You don't have to break the bank either. I mean, just to have some level of stability at that position, because after Marshawn Lynch left, it's like we're hoping Chris Carson could be that guy, and then he had injuries, and unfortunately, it ended up being career-ending. Thought Rashad Penny could be the one, and now he's retired. With Walker, he's had injuries here and there, but nothing super serious. Nothing that's caused him to miss more than 2 games. You can always find a veteran running back in the market, or just draft one in the later rounds. Just don't do another 2nd-round pick. So I think that's, if I were to bet for what happens over the next year or two, Walker stays on the team on like a 2 or 3 year extension, and they go running back shopping and let Charbonnet or somebody else take the reins as the backup.
It was painful to search for beast mode's replacement all those years. I mean, it felt like they were just trying to find, like, you had Eddie Lacy coming in here, and you had oh my god, it was just
for that signing too. That was one of the worst picks ever.
Yeah, it was just like, Pete, like, we're not replacing this guy. Like, let's figure something else out. But and like you said with Chris Carson, that was a 7th round guy. McIntosh, a 7th rounder, and then they sort of kind of like, they're all over the place, because then they'll take Ken, who that was a legitimate 2nd round pick, but Zach, maybe a reach there at the 2nd round, but then they get Kenny in the 7th. So like you said, you can get him everywhere, right? So go ahead, Bryce. I mean, I agree. I think you can sign Ken at a reasonable price. Like you said, I think everybody just thinks, oh man, once Ken's contract, we got to break the bank, like you're signing DK or Charles Cross. But it's the market's the market for each position. So I think you can make that work. And I agree. It'd be nice to see Ken here if he stays healthy, right? That's going to be the thing in the next little bit too. If he goes down with some more injuries, then you might get him for cheaper too. But it's kind of a wait and see thing. But I'd like to see him here.
Here's the thing for me, though. Out of all those running backs we've listed, we forgot the guy that actually probably had the biggest impact outside of Chris Carson for like half a season, which was Thomas Rawls.
Yeah. Oh, real when he first hit the scene.
When Rawls first hit the scene,
we thought we had the next guy. Yeah, right away.
We did, and I
got hurt.
They wonder what would have happened if he had never broken his ankle. Because he looked that good. Ankle break really did change how he ran coming back from that. Like, he never looked as aggressive or as fast when he got the ball. He had the one game, it was, I think, the Detroit playoff game. He kind of had like a Sean Alexander renaissance moment, like Alexander had against Green Bay in 2006, following our Super Bowl run that year, where he had like 100-yard game and after all the injuries and whatnot. But that was one guy that I was so disappointed didn't pan out, was Thomas Rawls, because I loved watching him play.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. And then unfortunately, as you mentioned, the injuries happened, and then the offensive line got substantially worse. And then that's when the Jokel signing and Jamarcus Webb, and then it just became saloon door right into the backfield. So Rawls couldn't really deal with that anymore. He also had a big game against Carolina, I think, in 2016.
Yep.
That was a game where Earl broke his leg. But he had like a wicked 55-yard touchdown run where Collinsworth was just fawning over Rawls because he was just an energy bunny. He was an energizer bunny out there. And Seattle's just had bad luck at this position for so long, whether it's him or Procise. Christian Michael didn't have any injuries. He just didn't have like NFL ability.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Griff. C. Mike did a lot of stuff wrong, and that's why he ended up out of the NFL. But and then Robert Turbin, he was okay. He just had too many plays called back due to holding penalties.
It's funny
Yeah.
you mentioned Robert Turbin because that's exactly, when you talk about how going forward, if we sign Ken and then you're looking for that next back that's just your backup that can come in. Robert Turbin was perfect at that role for Seattle for those years with Beast Mode. Like he could come in, he could give you a little bit, and then you get Beast Mode a breather, and then on goes, Robert Turbin on the field, and then he comes off, Beast Mode goes back in. He played that role so well in Seattle. That's kind of what I envision eventually will happen is Charbonnet will probably be the one to walk because he'll want a starting job somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this one up here. Another question from our group here. How much do you think our new coaches might be able to help Schneider identify better O-linemen, if at all?
I really have no idea. Well, with Scott Huff, hopefully he is still in tune enough with the college game that he would have had inputs on drafting Haynes and drafting Lomeo. I mean, Lomeo was in there in the old Pac-12, so we got to see him firsthand when he was at Utah. And then Jarrell, who knows? Maybe you had to go deep into the weeds with the scouting department to figure out if he was. I mean, Jarrell's highlights are on YouTube, on his own YouTube channel. Yeah. That's when I was pulling up the draft highlights to do on Field Gulls. I'm looking for Michael Jarrell highlights and figured I got no shot. He's Findlay University, and lo and behold, there's his YouTube channel. But yes, they're going to have to adjust this offensive line again next year. You cannot let Tomlinson get another year. Even in this game, which was one of his better graded games based on PFF, and I've got my thoughts on PFF grades. One of the busted play action plays was him getting turned around by the defensive tackle like right away, and Gino ended up having to short arm it. So you're going to need a new left guard. Center is to be determined again because of Connor Williams and whether or not he's going to be beyond the year. I would resign him.
I'd be talking to him now.
Yes, I would resign him now before the price of the brick goes up, so to speak. And then right guard, it's either going to be Bradford or Haynes, and that's pretty clear cut. Right tackle is a to be determined, but I just want the Seahawks to sign to draft a guy who is so good that he is undeniably multi-year extension worthy. I had this tweet out the other day that the only offensive lineman the Seahawks have ever drafted under John Schneider who got a multi-year extension was Justin Britt. That's it.
Right.
14 years. And of course, we still got the potential, and to me, the high likelihood that they resign Cross. But Okung was on that was the pre-CBA before they had the standardized rookie deals. So he got a 6-year contract. And he was the first pick for Carolyn Schneider. And he saw those whole 6 years, and then they didn't resign him. And then Max Unger was not a John Schneider draft pick. He was a Tim Ruskell draft pick. Yeah. Thank you to the Chicago Bears for allowing Seattle to trade back into the second round to get him. They extended him, and they extended Dwayne Brown, but they have generally not extended offensive linemen, period. Even if I broaden the scope a bit to free agent signings and trade acquisitions, it's just been a revolving door. And we also end up seeing revolving doors on the field as a result. So I'm hoping that the Jarrell pick can hit if by any chance it can, or the Christian Haynes pick more likely can hit, or if Anthony Bradford can improve, so that we're not having this discussion every single year. Because you don't necessarily need a bunch of first round and second round picks to have a cohesive offensive line. The Lions do. I mean, the Lions have got a great offensive line. They spam first round picks, but the Buffalo Bills got a great offensive line, and 2 of their starters are undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In fact, they don't have a first round pick on the offensive line at all. I think they only got one guy who's even a second round pick. So there is no one size fits all. There's no one right way to do it. But I think we found a lot of wrong ways to build an offensive line over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree with the Connor thing. I think more than anything, just get some stability there. Like you said, we've turned that center position over every single year since Unger, right? So it's just even if his plays average the rest of the year, just it's a guy that's if Gino's back for the next couple seasons or whatever, it's just that stability and just familiarity and I mean, yeah, or else you're just starting over again. And like you said, it's the one position group where you need to work as one, right? So yeah, we'll see. But I mean, the good thing is, just real quickly going back to yesterday, things looked a little better, right? So that's what you can hope for moving forward. Like you said, for a guy that played Div 2 ball and maybe wasn't, he's not playing Bosa or Hutchinson, but playing Div 2 ball, starting his first game and holding his own and giving some hope to fans that, hey, okay, there was a point, like you said, there was 2 rooks in there on that line. And, we put up points on the offense. And so that, I mean, that's a good sign, especially going home, building the confidence with those guys too. Gino feeling a little more confident with that group, no question about it. So, man, I'm excited for Sunday. I want to hear already. I want to get it going, man. I mean, we're all pumped about yesterday, right? So let's keep this ball rolling, man. Yeah, this was a good kind of first go around with the new segment. Mookie, why don't you let everybody know what you got going on down at Field Gulls, what you got coming up, and yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, this is a good starting point. Next time we do this, it will be the Seahawks bye week, right? Because they'll play those games. Also be the week of my birthday, so hopefully they give me an early birthday present by beating the Rams for once and beating them comfortably, so I can actually write my final score headline with confidence. But yeah, Field Gulls, we're going to have some all 22 reviews from our Brazilian correspondent there, Alexandre Castro. He does a great job there. If you haven't seen it already, my enemy reaction series is up with the fan reactions from the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers after their latest meltdown against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll probably have some other op-eds and fun facts related to this past game, and also a look ahead to what we see out of the Buffalo Bills, because this is a once every 8 years trip for Bills fans to come to Seattle. The last time they were here, I say here, I mean, I'm in Portland, but last time they were in Seattle, it was the Monday night game where Tyrod Taylor briefly turned into the best quarterback in the league, or at least it felt like it. But Seattle was able to hang on because Jimmy Graham played out of his mind. And Richard Sherman, I guess, was a center of attention for a variety of reasons that night, but it was still a W. And it was your typical Pete Carroll primetime game. This is still going to be a big game. I mean, Fox is sending Tom Brady out here. So there are going to be a lot of eyeballs to this one, eyeballs on this one. So hopefully the Seahawks show out and they win a big game against a true contender. Like, Atlanta's a playoff team. I don't think they're a real contender, but Buffalo is a true contender. If they can win that, then we're going to be in a state of euphoria, I think, entering November.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and just touching on that too, I think this would be a huge signature win for Gino, and especially for him. So I'm going to say this. I think this is a game where you had your must win. You coming in, Buffalo's coming in, they're a contender. I feel like you can play loose, and just because really, you're the underdog, even though you're at home, but you just play like you have nothing to lose. And I think just with the confidence and let the guys fly around, I think with another week with Grubb just kind of figuring stuff out. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it, man. If they can compete like they showed yesterday and put a beat down on the Falcons, if they can bring that same game over and shore up the run defense a little, then we might be in this game, and that's all you can ask for at the end of the day, right? So yeah, yeah, guys. So appreciate everybody, coming in live and throwing the comments down and questions and just hanging out with us tonight, Monday night. Instead of watching the Monday Night Football, you're hanging out with us. So that we appreciate that. Maybe doing both. So who knows? But yeah, we appreciate it. And we'll get you guys going on the next one. Mookie's going to be back in a couple weeks with us, and it should be fun. So let's catch you guys in the next one. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.